Inner Source Healing Podcast, a show dedicated to helping individuals heal from the impact of toxic abuse. I'm Deborah Ashway, a licensed clinical mental health therapist and a licensed clinical addiction specialist. But more than that, I'm someone who's been down that path. I know the journey of healing can be long and challenging, but I also know that it's possible to break free from the chains of dependency, codependency, and trauma bonding. When we awaken from that trance that toxic relationships can create, we finally can breathe, live, and experience life in full, vivid, extraordinary color. Through this podcast, I aim to provide support, guidance, and resources for anyone seeking to heal from the impacts of toxic abuse. We will explore the healing process and the challenges and the false perceptions that may be holding you back from living a more fulfilling and meaningful life. Today, I am excited to have Laura Rhodes Levin, author of The Missing Piece and founder of the Missing Piece Center for Anxiety. Laura is a licensed therapist specializing in treating anxiety, depression, and trauma. Her personal journey in overcoming her own struggles with anxiety has been a driving force behind her passion for helping others. Her book, The Missing Piece, Rewire Your Brain, Reduce Anxiety, and Recreate Your Life, provides a valuable guide for individuals seeking to understand the root causes of anxiety and find healthier ways to navigate life's challenges. As the founder of the Missing Piece Center for Anxiety, Laura has created a unique approach to address anxiety, depression, and trauma through a combination of spirituality, evidence-based therapy, and modern technology. Her insights and expertise have provided hope to countless individuals on their healing journeys. Welcome, Laura Rhodes Levin, and thank you for joining me on my podcast today.
Thank you for having me. Very happy to be here.
I'm so glad you're here. Thank you. Can you share your personal journey that led you to specialize in treating anxiety, depression, and trauma?
Absolutely. I suffered a lot with anxiety I was born with it. As I've learned to study it and learn more about it, I find it's actually very generational, that we don't just inherit eye color and hair color, we inherit emotions and traumas. And so even though I'm more of a pagan in my approach to spirituality and just loving, or scientist, because for me it's all about the universe. I come from thousands of years of the Jewish people who have been running and experienced trauma. And it was interesting to learn that my grandmother's trauma with Cossacks was affecting me in the hills of Tarzana at, 4 years old, making me think there's a bear in the closet. And I think so often we just don't understand what's wrong with me. And it's actually what's right with you, but it can get out of hand.
You're right. It is what's right with you. Explain that a little bit more.
Sure. So anxiety is a flight fight response, and it's supposed to be there so that when we encounter danger, it goes into your limbic system and it stays there so that the next time that danger occurs, you are ready for it. You're not taken by surprise. You know exactly what to do. But if you put together the genetics that we've all experienced, not just the Jewish people, of trauma and anxiety that we've experienced as we've grown up as human beings, and then in today's world, you add it to all the technology, the constant alerts our brain must be on all the time. And then you add that to political strife and a pandemic. Oh my God. It starts, here's this original idea that was supposed to protect you, and it's now taken over, and it starts making your world smaller and smaller and smaller, when all it was supposed to do originally was keep you safe. And we're not given a lot of tools on how to soothe ourselves as primitive beings that develop that primitive response to function in today's world. It's a lot more than count to 10.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. What do you think the difference is between the human brain that has, you're saying, like, almost generations of this trauma, maybe handed down through DNA possibly, or experiences that we've come across, and
Oh,
like animals that have also, survival tactics? What makes us hang on to it more where we fight with anxiety?
well, it's this newly developed frontal cortex, which in the scheme of things is pretty new. And the last thing you want to do is think about your emotions. Some more primitive animal, let's say a lizard, it gets scared by something and it runs off. It doesn't sit there and think, God, do they not like me because, I'm green and I have a shorter tail than everybody else? And why would my own mother do that to it? They don't think about that kind of stuff. And we want to think our way out of anxiety. And it's like scratching your head to itch your foot. It's a
Mm.
completely different part of your brain. And yet we trust the thinking like like it's a god. And it's not the answer. In the situation of anxiety and depression and trauma, it is not your thinking that is going to get you out of it.
Absolutely. Is there anything in particular, like any moment in your life that inspired you to write The Missing Piece, rewire your brain, reduce anxiety, and recreate your life? And can you talk a little bit about that?
Sure. And thank you for asking. So the missing piece has actually been the name of my business since 2006 because I felt like all the healing work that I was doing was bringing me peace. So that is PEACE. Um, and then it's just evolved and evolved into so many different iterations where it's grown into a 10,000 square foot anxiety center. It's grown into a mental health charity. And I've always wanted to write a book. And it seemed like, well, to be honest, so many people say to me, oh my God, this anxiety center that we've never seen anything like it. You should open in New York and you should open in Florida and you should open in Brentwood. And I'm like, I do not want to do all of that. But maybe I can get the word out, the messages that I'm delivering to people in person through a book, and they can experience the same peace as my patients do without me running all around the world, opening up anxiety centers, which to me does not sound relaxing.
Well, talk about the anxiety center. Describe that a little bit.
So going back to what I was saying about the thinking, of course, we do regular therapy there. We have group therapy, we have art therapy, we have talk therapy, and we're all good therapists. I really feel that. But, you know, it takes more than flour to make cake is the example I always use. A lot of my patients will say, well, I tried this and I tried that. And yes, we have, but did we put it all together to get these ingredients? So um, when an animal is triggered or freaked out, like a cat is like hissing and big, you don't say, "What triggered you? Let's talk about it, tiger." You have to calm that animal down. So my center is an intensive outpatient program or partial hospitalization. And in these 9 to 30 hours a week of therapy that they get massage, they get sound baths, they get aromatherapy, music therapy. We're finding different ways to soothe our bodies. And then when you're calm and relaxed, you can rethink about whatever it is that traumatized you or gives you anxiety or gives you depression. But without those tools to really change how you feel, um, it's very difficult to make long-term changes, I think, or just a lot longer, just talking about stuff. So that's why I created the center. I talked for years. I needed more.
It's kind of like resourcing people before you dig into that anxiety.
Yeah. And of course, we address it at the same time, but you start with briefer stuff and then you can get into real trauma work like EMDR or, exposure therapy or what have you.
Oh, that's nice. Can you give me an overview of how you teach people to harness anxiety, shift focus to what you love, and live the life that they want?
So that's what I've learned is that this anxiety, this nervous system inside of me that's just so hyper aware. I like to think of it as my dark side, and then there's my Jedi, right? And channeling that intensity, because it's a very intense existence anxiety. You've learned to vibrate at a really intense pace. But what I'm really about is frequency. Okay. So we're all energy. Everything is energy. The microphone you're speaking into is energy. The glasses we have on our faces is energy. And when you've had a lot of drama and trauma and anxiety, you're on a very low frequency. And this may sound a little out there, but I really believe this is science. When you're on a low frequency, you are encountering other low frequency beings. You are on a certain channel, if you will. As you raise your vibration with self love, with joy, with bringing out that inner light, it's got a momentum to it that propels you to a whole other frequency where there is opportunity and chances to really change your life and follow your dreams. And it starts with, like, we all hear about self-care, but what does that even mean? You hear, oh, self-care, meditation, still misunderstood. It's all about making friends with your brain and and finding that inner joy and following your passion, whatever that passion is. It could be collecting rocks. It could be, it doesn't matter. When you find that passion and you feel deserving of joy, which trauma and toxic childhood or even adulthood experiences robs you of, it takes it out of your lexicon of who you are. Well, then you can really start to create. And I love watching it happen. I love watching it happen. And I do think it's like being on a bad radio station and changing to your favorite radio station.
Yeah, exactly. So you're teaching people how to change the channel or how to tune into a different frequency.
Exactly. Exactly. We've all had the days where we spill our coffee and someone cuts us off on the freeway, and it's one of those days. Or it's the day where you find $1 in your pocket and the clerk was so nice. And that's because you're traveling in a totally different frequency.
Absolutely. How can people recognize the root cause of their anxiety, or is that important? And then address it effectively?
It is important. I don't think it's the whole thing because you can do a lot of work with someone that you can only see for a short time. But I feel like when you really understand something, it's so much easier to um, reprogram yourself, which is a lot of how my book works. I speak about my own personal stories where I was really under it. And then how so they're broken down into 3 parts each chapter. The first chapter is a story from my life that was traumatizing or anxiety provoking. And then the framework that I use to look at it now. And then the third part is tools to get there. Like you actually build your own toolkit and apply it to your life because it's different for everybody.
Mhm.
So I do think knowing a little is definitely helpful.
In that it helps us rewrite that program that you're talking about.
Yeah.
Can you share the program that you experienced in your life?
Oh gosh. Well, I think part of it is generational. Again, you've got the really hysterical, fear-based type of protection. So when you love someone, scream at them and try and keep them safe with anger and always under anger is fear. So a lot of fear-based programming and education, if you will, in air quotes.
Just because so many people have these programs and it's hard to recognize what they are. And so that's part of the work that we do. It sounds so much like what you're doing. is to just try to figure out what the programs are in order to rewrite them, because they kind of hide underneath the surface. They really hide from our consciousness.
They do. They're very subconscious. And so the other part after you get through the generational is just the time that I was raised in. I mean, I was raised in the 60s and 70s, and our parents were like drunk and high, and kids were just like on the side. Like my chore was make sure my dad's ice cube tray was filled and that his drink was ready for him when he got home. And my mother was so busy concentrating on finding the right husband, of which she had five. Your level of self-importance and mattering and making sure other people's needs are met beyond your own. That's a programming that's intense. And then just the inner critic where, people are so proud of saying, "Oh, I'm harder on myself than anybody is." Why? Why would you do that to yourself? Be gentle with yourself. If a kid is sitting here trying to learn how to do a math problem, you wouldn't say, "Oh, you're an idiot. You're never going to get it. Unless you figure this out now, your whole life is going to be a failure." This kid would just curl up in a ball. But we actually talk to ourselves that way. You're fat. You're stupid. You're this. Like, oh my God, say to a kid, you are really getting there. I love how you're trying. Just keep going. You got this right. Now work on this. That's the programming we all need.
What is your role of spirituality? You touched on it with energy, and I agree with you 100%. Energy is everything. But the role of spirituality in your approach to therapy at, for example, the Missing Piece Center for Anxiety.
So I really got the basis of that. So another aspect of myself is I've been sober for 17 and a half years. I found for a long time drugs and alcohol shut my brain up. I could be in the moment. I could be like, "Oh my God, this music is great. This food tastes awesome. You are so cool." Like I could be in the moment until my liver decided we're not liking being in the moment like this. I mean, it really is a terrible, and pot's the worst one because you can just be pleasantly miserable for the rest of your life because you won't hit a bottom with pot. And that was definitely my favorite. So in the program of AA, they talk about a God of your understanding, which I'm so grateful for because even in 17 and a half years, the word God just kind of makes me go like, yeah. But that it refers a lot to a higher power. So my center really focuses more around spiritual thinking as opposed to religious thinking, which can get confusing. Now, if someone finds their spirituality in religion, that's fine and that's wonderful. And that's something I learned from the program. It's whatever it means to you. But it has to do with hope and faith and reframing that somehow, as awful as whatever this is that's happened to you, that there's a bigger picture, that there's hope for you, that there's a chance to turn this into gold, and that there's a bigger picture going on. And I think if you look at the universe and all living things, it is always striving to be healthy, and it prunes off the unhealthy stuff, just sort of dies and falls off. And that's what we're trying to do with our lives as souls. So I do think the universe, when you're traveling in that different frequency, is so encouraging. And when you're traveling in that frequency of hate and fear, it doesn't go very far. It just keeps dropping at your feet like heavy acid. And you gotta let that stuff go to move forward.
I 100% agree. And in combination with this approach, integrating spirituality, do you also use modern technology in your therapeutic approach?
I do. A big part of our center is neurofeedback and pulse electronic magnetic field therapy, which is PEMF. So the brain really is the new frontier in a lot of ways. And we do EEGs, electroencephalograms, on our patients where they're able to the brain is able to show its activity to you. So in other words, through the EEG, we focus on the amygdala, we focus on that part that's so freaked out, and we show it back to the client through the monitor. And you're not actually watching brain activity. Science has turned it into, you can put on Bridesmaids and your brain activity is encoded into that, and your mind is watching a movie, but your brain is going, oh my God, there's lions everywhere. Wait, I'm sitting in a room and I'm in a recliner. There's no lions here. And it starts to really rewire itself. It starts to repro itself and create new neural pathways so that you're not getting hijacked by your emotions. It goes back to that original plan of we react when there's fear and we don't react when a glass of water falls on the floor as if we were just attacked. The other thing is pulse electronic magnetic field therapy, PEMF, which is really good for cellular inflammation and pain, and also mood. Depression comes along with mucus and inflammation and all sorts of things. And when you can get the cells to have the same healthy frequency from cell to cell to cell to cell, there's a flow. For example, if you have scar tissue, it blocks the flow. There's a change in the energy of the cell itself. And by adjusting that cell frequency, you create flow.
And you're doing that through electromagnetic fields?
Yes, it's these gold plates that attach to different parts of your body for an hour at a time, and they reduce inflammation and they change cellular flow.
Wow.
Yeah, it's so awesome. It's so awesome.
Yeah, that sounds amazing. I haven't even heard of that. So that reduces inflammation. And then how does that affect the nervous system? And how does that then affect your ability to control emotions?
So when you have pain, whether it's felt pain or just a blockage in your body, opens up that fight, flight thing. We become overly cautious. We're trying to protect the part of our body that hurts. It also is a thief of joy. I mean, pain can be so debilitating. And then that creates depression. I can't go anywhere. When we're in pain, we don't often want to be with people. And we're social beings. We want to hang out and have fun ultimately. That's what we're here to do, is hang out and enjoy ourselves and produce and enjoy life. And so that is a tremendous block once the pain starts to go away. And the interesting thing is, we don't know what comes first. Someone could get in a motorcycle accident and be in a lot of pain, and so therefore they're not going to be in the greatest of moods. But there's a lot of people who come to us with severe IBS or migraines or even something like a motorcycle, which is created by, it's a psychosomatic symptom. There's something going on in their lives that they just can't stomach. And their brains tell them, well, this is the job for us and we're making money. And our bodies just scream at us, I am not happy. I cannot stomach this way of life. And we tend to just think, oh, if I just fix that stomach thing, I'll be fine. But it really is a top-down and bottom-up venture. It's a two-way street.
Interesting. This is really fascinating.
Thank you.
Yeah. I mean, I do. Yeah. I haven't heard of that. And I mean, I've heard of other things like sound, to do sort of similar things, but not the electromagnetic fields. What tools do you find that are the most effective in healing and controlling the wounded child?
So it's different for everyone because some people are tactile, some people are audio. For me, the trick is in the 5 senses or 6 senses. I really am trying to reintroduce the phrase, come to your senses. It's not just a guy slapping a woman around in a black and white movie. It meant something once. Your senses are your ticket out. Take a place like Hawaii. It smells good. The sounds of the waves, the air on your skin, the way it looks is so beautiful. Your senses take over, and you don't care about your taxes. You don't care about whatever problem it is you've been brewing about. Your whole body just relaxes. But we don't have to go to Hawaii to experience our five senses. We just don't often go to them. And that's what mindfulness really means. Go to that body, go to that beautiful body that's so frightened right now. And notice you're sitting on a really comfortable couch. Listen to music that makes you feel good. Aromatherapy, smells are our oldest scent, and they can change how you feel in an instant. And it's not just lavender. There's so many different smells that are pharmaceutical in just their nature. So that's where the body part comes from. And it's funny that you use the word wounded child, because wounded child and capable adult self are two concepts I really want people to get a hold of. So there's the wounded child that goes, shit, I'm such a fuck up. I can't believe I did that. And then there's your capable adult self that says, hey, you are really doing your best. That be gentle on yourself. This is not personal. That nobody likes that boss. This is whatever the issue is, the capable adult self, that higher knowing self that would talk to your friend and give the advice to friend or someone that you love, and creating that relationship with your own wounded, hurt self that becomes that fearful animal.
When you talk about healing the wounded child in the tools that you use, you mentioned earlier that in your center for healing, you use expressive arts. Can you explain how that helps?
Absolutely. Arts happen in a completely different part of your brain, and it has nothing to do with artistic skill. It's a way of expressing yourself. You take a child who's in kindergarten and you give them a chance to draw a picture, you're getting a lot of information there. My favorite, and they have no artistic skills at that point, unless they're like the Beethoven of art or something. But my favorite example is one of my art therapists had the clients paint birdhouses, and they were supposed to represent themselves. And this one woman who'd had a lot of trauma, she painted her house all pink, and then she painted the roof black. And in the processing, it came out that her roof was black because if anyone ever looked down on her again, they would go into a void. Now, that to me is so profound. It's setting a boundary. But you wouldn't come up with that in just talk therapy. You know what I mean? It's creating a construct, a visual that came from your soul that says, I am pink and beautiful and special, and no one's looking down on me anymore. And journaling, if you look at stand-up comedy, if you look at songs, poetry, this is a chance to write your pain and create healing for yourself. And so we want to explore all of that. Even music is part of our expressive arts. Let's get that anger into a drum. Let's not scream at our little brother. Let's bang on some piano keys and express that emotion.
How did you develop these strategies and this center, the Missing Piece Center for Anxiety, that seems to work so well?
I just followed what feels good to me. And I've incorporated other people who've shared, I can dance. I love dance, but I cannot play an instrument. So by putting together a group of really talented group of people, from mental health to just people who found joy in things, and combining that, following what you love to do that relaxes you, that's we need access to that whole buffet. Some people want the salmon, some people want the Jello, but as long as it tastes good to you, it's going to make you feel good. And that's where your good stuff is. That's where you're going to get over the emotion and start living the life you want to live.
That is a good explanation. And it sounds like you're saying the fundamental part of this is raising your frequency and doing that through something that you love and doing that through increasing your joy. So if you're at a lower frequency like anger or shame or whatever, you're down there and you're trying to raise it. And it sounds like the higher frequencies are joy and love. And so the goal is to do that. Is that right?
Absolutely. And when we experience trauma, neglect, anxiety, depression, oppression, we interpret that as our value, that we're not lovable, that we deserve to be treated a certain way, that we're being punished by God, the universe, where we take all this abuse that has happened to our beautiful, sweet souls, and we learn to be self-loathing. And none of us deserve to loathe ourselves. Nobody, nobody, nobody. So when you learn how to love yourself and that you are so special, every single person on this earth is so special and has their own very special flavor that we're all waiting for. And in our need to just be like everybody else, we dumb down our own stuff, but we get seasoned by our pain. And we can either bring out our flavor and make our most beautiful, elegant dish, or we can just chuck it in the trash and think that's where it belongs. And that's what we're trying to get over and get past.
So reprogramming some of these self-loathing, some of these cognitions that we carry around through trauma. How do you do that? How do you help somebody find their self-worth?
I try and help people. And again, through these modalities, just the feedback of, oh my God, that was so good. Just hearing over and over again, you did great. Loving someone until they love themselves is a big part of it. But then also, I kind of like to think of it as a court of law, where you've got this great defense mechanism that's ready to punish and build a case against why you should have an imprisoned life. And we've got to start getting we've got to start getting another case going, building, this is what's great about you. This is what's great about you. Look at who you've helped. Look what you did in this situation. Look what you endured. Look how strong you are. Look what you were able to live through. And build a really strong case that's big enough to overshadow the bad parts. And I think we all know, like down deep in our souls, that we're good, but there's this loud, loud, loud voice. And by practicing bringing the positive voice forward, what starts to happen is they start to switch places. So it's like, and then it's bad, good, bad, good, bad, good, 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 good. Until that, and with all the work I've done, I'm not going to sit here and say I don't have any negative voices. They aren't always there. They're always back there, but they have just as much power over me as the positive did before. They have switched places. And so and it takes practice. Part of it is habitual. Part of it is really getting to understand your different parts of self and where they belong and who should be driving.
Mhm.
And just rewiring that brain programming of where when this happens, you always think this, but now we're going to think that instead till your brain does it automatically.
Yeah, you're saying exactly the same things that I believe 100% that the kind of things that we do. You're saying it so well. Can you relate that to healing from toxic abuse? Because that's what this podcast is. And so many listeners have been through toxic abuse and have probably been programmed because of that.
Yes. So one of the first things is, and I learned this from the 4 agreements, Whatever has happened to you, it has nothing to do with you. It is not personal. If acid burns you, it's not because you have flimsy skin. It's because acid burns. It burns the most healthy, beautiful skin. And if you have toxic people, toxic energy in your life that are sick, these are sick people. And I really believe even the most toxic, abusive people, deep down, they're good inside. Now, that's not what you want to hear when you've been abused by someone, but it helps to see their wounded child. It helps to see that you've got, when you've got a cornered animal and they're just afraid their whole lives and they're just throwing porcupine quills at everything, that's got nothing to do with you. And you could say, how do you not take your mother personally? Well, you could have been born to 10 different mothers. And you could say the same thing to each mother. You could say, can I have lamb chops for dinner? And one of them will say, sure, honey, let me go to the market. One will say, I'm a vegetarian. We don't kill animals here. One will say, we're broke. How could you even think that? One would say, throw a plate of food across the room and say, nothing I make is good for you. It's not personal. It's just who these people are. And so get away from toxic abuse. Love yourself enough to know it's not your job to heal that toxic person. That's their job. And you will not heal that toxic person. And a lot of us, and this is where I hate the psyche so much, so stupid in so many ways. People either go opposite of what they had, or they go from one abusive, toxic relationship to another because either they feel deserving of it, which I'm telling you, you are not, or somewhere in the psyche, and this is the part I hate, thinks that, well, if I heal this toxic person, then I'm okay. And all the stuff that happened with my mother doesn't matter. And none of it touches anything. So get away from toxicity. Surround yourself with people who believe in you, who love you. And if you can't find them, it starts from the inside anyway. Believe in yourself and love yourself no matter what.
You're right. And excellent. And can we talk about guilt for a second? Because as you're saying this, just leave. It's not your job to take care of them. Sometimes the programming is that you're a bad person if you're not taking care of them, because whoever the toxic person is, and you're using the example of a mother, which is a good example, has been the victim. And so
Right.
you're born and raised to, believe that it is your job or you're a bad person.
And that goes right back. Why are you telling yourself you're a bad person? Because someone else is, someone who you've given everything you possibly can to. You are not a bad person. And the example, the visual, I think that works for people, and I think it creates the painful visual that you actually have to execute. If you have a boat and someone next to you is drowning, and you throw them lifesavers and you try and pull them out, and you're doing everything you can to get them into the boat, and all they do is throw the help away, or even worse, try and pull you into the water and drown with them. You've got to row away. You've got to row away, because there is nothing you're going to do for that person. And now you can either save your life and go off and help someone who will get in the boat, or find someone who's like, hey, I've got a boat too. My boat does this. Oh, cool. My boat does that. Let's do these two things and go off and enjoy your life, because that energy is infectious. Good energy is just as infectious as bad energy. Be part of the good spreading of the good, and give it to people and things that will run with it. And as hard as it is, row away from the drowning.
Right. Is that part of the reprogram that you have to do? Because if the program is still in there, it's like, I can't leave that person. I'm such a bad person. How can I leave that person, that poor person? It's going to be playing on auto.
Yeah, it addresses the guilt. It addresses the guilt of non-deserving, that negative voice, you are bad, which you've been programmed to believe by someone else. You didn't come into this world feeling guilt. You're programmed.
It sounds like you're doing an amazing job helping so many people with so many of these issues. And I want to touch on what you mentioned earlier, the PHEW Foundation, Pathways for Health and Emotional Wellness. Can you talk about that a little bit?
Yes, and thank you so much for asking me. It's a fairly new charity that I started because one of my patients, you know, it's not cheap to provide the stuff that I provide. And I'm able to take insurance for some of it. Insurance doesn't cover a lot. And I want to be able to do pro bono work. One of my patients came to me and said, look, if I didn't have insurance, I wouldn't have been able to get this. But I have money. When my insurance ran out, I could continue. There's a lot of people here who, when their insurance runs out, they can't. So I want to pay it forward. And he was going to donate like $12,000, and he did a fundraiser. It ended up being like $64,000. And he said, but I have to give it to a real charity because it has to be tax deductible. And I thought, this is one of those universe things where it's just put in my lap. Like, you're supposed to run with this. You're supposed to help people. So I've started building this charity for people to be able to attend the missing piece who can't afford to do so. And for people to continue, because God bless insurance, they're like, yeah, we'll give you 3 months to heal from a lifetime of trauma. Then you're out. I was like, but I'm just getting my trust developed here.
Right.
And so we get to continue.
That's fantastic. Do you have anything else that you want to add? There's just so much here. And I really want to encourage my listeners to go read this book. It sounds amazing. The Missing Piece: Rewire Your Brain, Reduce Anxiety, and Recreate Your Life. But is there anything else that you want to add or talk about?
Maybe not necessarily the book, but the journey. Be patient. It took me 50 years to figure this out. And I'm 57. I'm still working on it. The first night you get a good night's sleep, you could say, I wish someone just snapped my finger and I'll be all better. But what makes the all better so wonderful is the richness of the journey. That time that you sleep through the night for the first time. The first time you say to someone, hey, I just can't be spoken to that way. I gotta go. This is nothing against you. I gotta protect myself here. The first time you make something really happen that you've always wanted to happen. These are what make your life so rich. So don't be in a hurry. This is the lifetime journey of your soul. Just take one step. I tell people, you're going from California to New York. Don't keep saying, I'm not New York. I'm not New York. I'm not New York. You're already in Nebraska. You're not in California anymore. You're doing great. Just keep going.
Yeah.
And learn from the stuff you don't enjoy. I mean, there's got to be stuff.
Right.
But that's gold right there. That's charcoal to be turned into diamonds.
I love it. Well, thank you so much for joining me. I have really enjoyed this conversation. I love your energy. I love all the philosophies and the theories that you have, and I think this is very helpful. Thank you so much.
It is my pleasure, Deb. Thank you so much for having me. Thanks for the work that you do for so many. To all your listeners, I'm so glad you have Deb, and I'd love to be here anytime.
Absolutely. And can you share contact information? And I will include this in the notes, but contact information of how to find your book, how to reach you, how to look into the Anxiety Center.
So everything's accessible through my webpage, which is okay, so again, like, I wish I hadn't made this so long, but it's missing, MISSING, peace, PEACE, the number 4, anxiety.com. Missingpeaceforanxiety.com. You can find the book there, you can find the center there, and the charity.
And that's the number 4, the numeral, not the word spelled out.
Correct.
Got it. I will put that in the notes. And
Great.
thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening to the Inner Source Healing Podcast, Healing from Toxic Abuse. It's important to give yourself the self-compassion that you deserve and remember that your feelings matter. If you want more information or you want to contact me, please visit my website at innersourcetherapy.com. INNERSOURCETHERAPY.com.